Hey everyone, I thought I'd make a quick video on the good bit of any guitar build, which is applying stuff like this, or any kind of finish really, but in this case finishing oil, to the thing that you've made, which will be this. So this is a guitar I've made in the last month or so in my alfresco workshop. It's an original design. It's a semi hollow central spine that's solid, and then two kind of chambers either side with F holes, which aren't really F holes, I suppose, more like C holes, which sounds wrong, doesn't it? Yeah. Anyway, with holes. The main body is sycamore, and the top is carina. I think that's how you pronounce it, which has been buck matched and made nicely symmetrical. So I'm going to apply 2 coats of penetrating guitar oil, which I'm going to apply using 1200 grit sandpaper, then 4 coats of high build guitar finishing oil, which will be kind of cured over 10 minutes and then buffed out and all the excess taken off. So I'll do it to the letter just to kind of make sure it all works. I've also got some big blue toilet paper. As a note of caution, I would seriously recommend putting gloves on. Yeah, rubber up everyone. One thing to mention is that I'm going to have to, because of the F holes, I'm going to have to apply the oil with it sitting vertically, because I don't want oil dripping down into the chambers below. So the method is to apply it, certainly in the first instance, fairly excessively, then let it cure for 10 to 15 minutes, I think it is, depending on the heat of the room. But as soon as it starts to feel slightly tacky, as soon as your finger doesn't slide across the oil, that's the point when you need to kind of just muller it with this stuff and get all the excess off. Otherwise it'll leave you with a very sticky guitar. So here it is. It's dried and it's actually quite shiny. I'm pretty happy with it. The crimson oil is quite good stuff if it's used correctly. There are some things to be aware of though when using it. I did find out some stuff along the way, so here are 9 things worth noting. So the first obvious thing is that it's quite possible to get a glossy finish. It's not high gloss, but it's more than satin. This has just had oil on, 6 coats of oil, not any other polish or beeswax or anything. So you could probably get it shinier. I'm probably going to do that shortly. Use sandpaper for the first coats. So the first penetrating oil coats, the first 2 coats, apply using this wet dry paper. This is 1200, but you could use 2000. And you need to work across the grain or in circles, which might seem counterintuitive, but actually it fills in the grain, does the final sanding, and it creates a more even surface in the end. Number 3, make sure your surface prep is flawless. So talking of sanding, make sure all scratch marks and inconsistencies are sorted out beforehand, as the oil does nothing but highlight them. There are some sections on the guitar which, especially the section down here, which looks a little bit ropey, to be honest. That I was kind of hoping would be okay, but it's not a showstopper, but it's now immortalised under 6 coats of oil, so there's no changing it, and the oil does highlight any flaws. The high build oil is a slightly different consistency. You might not notice when you're applying it, but it is stickier and gloopier. It could just be me as well, but it doesn't seem to need as much curing time, either towards 5 minutes rather than 10, or maybe that's just me getting nervous. It also stays tackier for longer, so even when you know you've removed all the excess by wiping it down, 5-10 minutes later, the finishing oil stays wet for a day or 2, but the high build is slightly tacky or kind of squeaky to the touch. If you draw a finger over it a day or 2 later, which can be worrying, but seems to be quite normal. It takes a good few days to dry properly and harden after the final coat. So don't be alarmed if it doesn't feel quite right initially. If you've applied it correctly, it will get there and it will dry out. Similarly, it could be me, but you need to leave a bit longer between the coats for the high build. It didn't seem quite ready to apply a second coat after a couple of hours. I think the bottle states 2 to 4 hours, but even after 4 hours, I was a bit nervous about putting another coat on, so I gave it around 6 hours, or even the next day. 2 hours is probably fine, and I'm sure they've done their homework at Crimson Guitars. I'm sure they've tested it, but I didn't want it to go wrong, so I did leave a little bit longer and was a bit more cautious, and it might pay to be the same. Make sure you got all the oil off when you're wiping it down. So when it's cured for 5-10 minutes, depending on what coat it is, make sure you use this stuff to get it all off, get all the excess off. All the other videos say this, but it is important. Otherwise it'll dry inconsistently, or maybe not dry at all in places. Obviously, as I said, the high build does feel slightly stickier when you're wiping it off, which can be a bit alarming, but I assume that's normal. Just as dodgy sanding shows up, so will finger marks if you handle the surfaces while it's drying. So try to avoid touching anything you put oil on, which can be tricky if you don't kind of plan it forward. One mistake I made, again, with this guitar, was not planning where I was going to hold it with my other hand when I was applying the oil. So I was typically holding it by holding it there, which isn't ideal because you need to oil that bit. It might be useful to put a hook on the bottom so you can hang it up. I've seen other people do this, and also kind of pivots. Alternatively, hold it in the pickup slots by there, or in the sections at the back, the cutout sections. If you do get finger marks on it, it's fine. It's not irretrievable. Just put another coat of oil on, and it'll get rid of them. Use thin coats. It goes without saying, but applying multiple thin coats is better than slapping on loads of thick ones, tempting though it might be. With the exception being the first coat of finishing oil, which absorbs pretty quickly. So you slap that on kind of fairly liberally. but again, make sure you wipe off all the excess. Lastly, if you like having fingernails, then wear gloves. It's got some stuff in it, this oil, which could cause your fingernails to become infected, which will cause them to fall off, and believe me, you've never known pain like it. Yeah, so stick them on. Okay, so the oiling's the good bit. It's now on to my least favourite bit, which is the wiring. I'll then pop some hardware on, and a neck obviously, and we'll see how it looks. Cheers.